If you're launching a new product, a new widget, a new service, you want those people who have an audience and followers who actually listen to them. Otherwise, you're just throwing your money away.
Hello, everybody. My name is Doreen Morin Van Dam. I am the community manager as well as content manager for Social Media Pro. Thank you for watching this hangout. Today, my guest is a very special guest. She's a friend of mine. Kristen Dokas and I have been friends for many years. She lives in North Carolina. I'm in South Carolina. So we get to meet at conferences, which is really fun. Before we go on, let me read you her bio so you know a little bit more about what she does, and then we'll go and talk about influencer marketing. So my apologies for having to read this, even though she's a really good friend of mine. I don't actually know her bio by heart. So let me go ahead and read it so you know who we're all talking to today. So Kristen Dokas is a seasoned marketing professional with expertise in digital marketing, influencer marketing, social media, and content strategy. She works with both B2B and B2C, as well as with entrepreneurs on branding and marketing for their companies and the best approach in creating an effective strategy that gets results. So Kristen, from what I know and how I know her, knows both sides of the coin, which is one of the reasons I invited her to be on this hangout today. So she works with influencers, she works with brand ambassadors, and she finds them and she works with them as a social media consultant, as a strategist. But she's also on the other side where she is an influencer in her own right, and she is a brand ambassador as well for several brands. So welcome, Kristen Dokas.
Thank you. I'm excited. It's one of my favorite topics.
The reason I asked Kristen to come in is that she is, and correct me if I'm wrong, do you call yourself an influencer, brand ambassador, or a combination of both?
A combination. It depends on, what I'm working on at the time, but and who I'm talking to, because not everybody still
understands both.
Understands either or both, correct.
Okay, so that's really cool. So that's why I invited you, because you are not just working with brands and connecting brands and influencers, but sometimes you are the influencer.
Correct.
So I think that gives a very unique perspective. And I think I've explained to you that usually about half of our students are business owners who might want to work with influencers who are learning social media to implement it in their own business. And the other half are students who are learning to become social media managers, who need to know and need to have this information to bring it back to their clients and say, influencer marketing is the way to go. This is a strategy we should implement, and I know how to go about it. So that's kind of where you come in. I think that you'll have a unique perspective. So let me go ahead and ask that first question. Beyond the numbers, what are people going to look for when searching for influencers? So let's talk about it as you're the social media manager, your brand that you're working with, B2B, B2C says, we have this new product, we have this new service. Your light bulb goes off and says, I think we need to get working with influencers. How does that go? What do you look for? How do you find how does that go? Tell us kind of the process.
Well, I'm obviously, again, in kind of a unique position in the fact that having been and am an influencer myself, I have a great network of influencers, bloggers, ambassadors, et cetera, that I can kind of tap into. There are definitely sites and software that you can utilize, and I probably should have written those down because off the top of my head, I'm not going to be able to rattle off those, but it's a pay to play kind of form where it's a database, right? But just like all of us have experienced in our entire careers working in digital marketing and social media, is that there's a lot of educating on your part to your customer. And because, everybody's like, I want the most number of, Facebook followers and this, that. So their first instinct is numbers. I want numbers. And one of the great things, and I love seeing the more micro influencers coming around, because it goes back to, you can have 1 million followers on your Facebook page, right? But if there's no engagement, if there's no interaction, what are they worth, right? So I would rather work with somebody that has 1,000 or 5,000 or pick some number that actually take the time to engage with their community, because that's when it's going to work. So if you're launching a new product, a new widget, a new service, etc., you want those people who have an audience and followers who actually listen to them. Right? Otherwise, you're just throwing your money away. I mean, if they're going to endorse it, their followers and their audience knows that if they're putting their name to it, it's a good thing. I know I've worked with so many influencers in the past on my own side of it, where it was just they had zero. They didn't care. They would work with everybody, right? And that's not a good approach either. So when I was doing it more heavily several years ago, I had a balance. So like I would keep my content at 80% editorial and 20% sponsored, because I think once you start getting, I mean, we've all seen the bloggers that have everything is like a coupon site, or it's just everything is, they endorse everything. How can you endorse everything?
Right.
I mean, really, how can you endorse everything?
I think so. That's a good point you're making. So when you're looking to work with an influencer, make sure they have real content as well, and their own content. And what about, and this is a follow-up question to that, what about a niche? Is that important that it goes with what they're already promoting? Are you looking, say you're wanting to promote a new cleaning product that's baby sensitive or baby friendly, whatever. Right. I mean, just picking that out. So you would look for specific influencers, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me how it would benefit you as a brand or you as a company if you're launching a new line of the sensitive baby products and the blogger is a DIY.
Yeah, that doesn't make
it doesn't make any sense at all. Now, if that particular DIY blogger is also a parent who sometimes will they talk about their family, they talk about their kids, right? Now that might be the exception to the rule, because see, they've still built that community, and their audience and their community knows that they've got kids, right? They may know that they are a sustainable builder type. So, I mean, there's definitely, you've got to do your research, and it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work just setting up that foundation because you've got to do your research.
Right. So I have a follow-up question for that. Earlier, I heard you say that you have a network right now because you've done it for so many years. You have a network of people, bloggers, influencers that you can tap into. I just want to know, and you said you have a database, but do you have that, like, seriously, I'm imagining like an old-fashioned Rolodex. Do you have a Google Doc? Do you have it on LinkedIn? Do you have lists? Just give us an idea on like your secret sauce on how to do that. Because I think just as it's important for us social media managers to network and to go to conferences, and especially those of us who own our own business and might be freelancers. So we want to connect with other people, especially if there's job opportunities. I would imagine the same thing is happening with influencers. So how do you do that? How do you keep track of that?
So I belong to several private groups, right, that are all influencer based. And anytime, and I have my own personal spreadsheet. So it's old-fashioned Excel spreadsheet, right? Sure. Now, if I'm getting ready to launch into a campaign, for instance, I did one last year. I think actually I tapped you for one of our clients. The first thing that I do is I create a Google form, like in SurveyMonkey. I'll create it, and I'll ask them the questions. I'll say, your name, your blog name, and then get all of their social media channels. And then I ask them for impressions, because impressions are important. I mean, the numbers are important. I mean, you're definitely going to get a lot more out of a blogger who has, 95,000 page views a month versus one that has 20, right?
Right. Sure.
But one of the things that I try to stay away from is, I know I don't do a ton on my blog anymore. I just don't. I don't have time for it. But I do a lot of stuff on the other social sites. So I get turned down, and I've actually stopped applying to a lot personally because I just don't have my blog numbers. And so many of these, like She Knows, Blog Her, etc. It's like you've got to have a minimum of 30,000 page views a month. I don't have it. So I try that's when I try and balance. So
I don't have it anymore either.
Yeah.
I did for.
Yeah. And I used to, but I just don't. However, I think and then also what's your ask? What are you looking for these influencers to do? Are you asking them for a full-blown campaign? Are you looking for a blog post? Are you looking for a video? Are you looking for an Instagram story? Are you looking for snaps, which don't, because it's worthless, as we all know, because you can't track those numbers. What are you looking for? And then from there, so if you're looking for something that's more heavy on video, then it's more important to see how their numbers are on YouTube, right? Same thing. If it's an Instagram thing, if it's a Pinterest thing, if their numbers are really, really strong there, those are the ones that you want to work with. And that's when it comes into the micro influencer.
Okay, so what you're telling me too is that your own file, you probably, even though you're doing the SurveyMonkey, you probably have an idea about, and you probably have a list of this person, these are all bloggers. These might be good video influencers. These are really good on Pinterest. You probably have them tagged in different categories, all your network.
Right, absolutely.
Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for those of you that are watching, if you are looking to work with influencers and you're building, or if you want to become an influencer and then you're building your own network, those are some of the things some of the categories that you want to build into as you do your own Excel sheet. Look for people who are great bloggers and what niche they're in, and then look to all the video experts that and have those connections with them and kind of build it out that way. So then when you're looking to work with people, you kind of have that ready to go, and you can invite them to the SurveyMonkey, which then will even, get you a better idea after that of who you want to pick to go. So let's move into the next part. If you're want to approach influencers, say you're the social media manager or the business owner, and you want to approach somebody like Kristen Dokas, what are some of the do and don'ts of approaching an influencer? We would love to know. What should we do and what should we not do?
Rule number 1, know who you're approaching. It used to chap my tail. When I was, so I started my very first mom blog, if you will, 15 years ago, way before mom blogs existed, right? Well, of course, at some point, as you well know, the kids aged out of that, right? Nobody wanted to hear that stuff. So I started segueing over and created a new site that was specific to, teens and tweens, right? So I cannot tell you how many times I would get pitched to test baby products. When very clearly, I have no babies. I have no babies, and I have no interest in having babies. So sometimes, depending on my mood, I would be kind of snarky and be like, I'm so glad you find my stuff interesting and that you think I want to promote baby stuff. So I know it sounds like it sounds salty, but if you haven't, and especially when they open with, we love your site. We love the stuff that you do. Well, if you love it so much, then how could you have missed that I don't have babies? I don't talk about babies.
Right.
So know who you're talking. And I know that the instinct is to make just a blanket email and send it out to everyone, but please do not do that unless everybody that you're sending it out to fits the profile of what you're looking for. So that is the absolute number 1 do and don't. So know who you're pitching and get right to the point. Another thing that is very aggravating is to get those kind of pitches without a clear call to action. So I would get them, and it basically would read like a press release. And so I would get it and I'd be like, what do you want me to do with this? Is it a press release? So make sure that you're very clear with your ask. If you want, and then know what the ask is going to be. You need to know, and this goes down to actually having your plan. your strategy, right? So, which you shouldn't be talking to anyone until you are 100% certain on what it's going to look like, what you want them to do for you, what you expect from them, and time frames. So you need to, it's these people that you're working with get pitched all the time. So
Okay.
you need to make sure that it stands out, that you take the time to, that's always, but this is like email faux pas 101, which is where you get the one that goes, dear question, quotation marks. So it's just an autofill. It's
Right.
a mail merge. So, make it personal as you possibly can.
Okay, so I have a question that kind of goes along with that. So who are the people that usually pitch you? Is it the social media manager? Is it a salesperson? Is it the business owner? Because somebody's got to come, like you said, come up with the plan for this influencer marketing. Even if normally they don't have a program, or if they're new to starting a program, somebody has to set their budget. Somebody has to set a timeline. Somebody has to set expectations. Somebody has to follow up and make sure the influencers are doing that. Who has that role? What do you call that person, or who have you seen take on that role? Is that something a social media manager should and can take on? Let's talk about that for a minute.
So I've been approached by a lot of different people, right? From a PR firm. I would say probably 50% of the time it's a PR firm, right?
Okay.
And that's because, I think PR firms are now kind of morphing into a little bit of the social media world and vice versa. So typically it is a PR person, at least on the initial contact. But I've also worked with company owners who just kind of reach out and do their own research and, search by topics. And, if it's something that's teen specific, if we'll go back to me, or midlife specific, they will kind of search those out. So they do their legwork. I've been contacted by owners of companies as well. And then you've got, like I said, going back, you've got the She Knows and the Blog Her type sites that companies will hire. So a lot of times you will be contacted by those. I used to do a fair amount of work through them, but I don't because, and could be a completely different topic as well, but they take a lot of the budget. Those kind of, they're almost like, blogger management kind of things, right?
Okay.
So, let's say your budget's $100,000 as ABC company, and you go to one of those type of consultant type companies, they'll usually keep 50% of that, which means you're getting, now the payout to the available bloggers is only $50,000. I'm just using arbitrary numbers.
Sure.
Like and I realize that most people are on the other side of it, but as an influencer, I would much prefer working directly with the brand or the company because I'm typically going to get more money. Which brings up another.
Okay, that's really good. So the next point that brings up, should you get paid?
Absolutely.
Do you get paid?
Do not. Unless, there are definitely certain bloggers that will work for either product or, pennies, but you're asking, this is these people's jobs. This is what pays their bills, whether it's a secondary income or what. I put a ton of time into this stuff. You're creating good content. So you're writing, if you're doing a video, you're shooting the video several times. You're incorporating their product into your video. Then you have to go and edit the video. Then you've got to create, it is, as an influencer, our job is no different than as a social media or digital marketing manager. We are doing the same thing. So how would you feel if your boss came to you and said, you know what, I want you to do all of the things. I want you to do all of the Facebook and all of the Twitter and all of the YouTube, but I'm not going to pay you.
Right.
It's the same thing. Don't do it.
Right.
Figure out what your budget is. If you've only got $1,000, again, arbitrary number, if you've only got $1,000 and you go, okay, I want to work with 100 bloggers, don't. Work with less and get more.
Okay. That's really, really good advice. So after, you giving us some really good points about what not to do when you're approaching an influencer. So to recap, make sure that you personalize the message, make sure you know who you're talking to, and make sure that it's the right target audience. What are the do and don'ts of approaching a company to partner with? So say you are the social media manager, you are completely new to this. And I have an example of that. I had a client a couple of years back that was a college consultant. So he worked very specifically with parents of children between the ages of 12 and 18. That was it. That was all he worked with, because he was getting them ready to take SATs and consult with them on where to go to college. And we found what I thought was a perfect partner, but he didn't want me in the mix to help out. So I don't know if that relationship worked. But what I suggested is go talk to the local driving school. Okay, they're targeting exactly the same parents between the ages of 15 and 18. You don't get that really younger crowd, but you'd get that 15 to 18 crowd of parents that have children in that age that are all thinking, they're going to start driving, and they're talking about college. So why not partner with them?
Right.
How do you approach that other business? How do you set up that partnership? Are there some do's and don'ts there that we can learn from?
Well, you need to, basically you're putting together a proposal to sell yourself, right? So you need to make sure that it fits. So with my latest venture, which is the social savvy workshops specific to parents, right? And social media, I made a list, right? So what's one of the most things I get most frequently asked is which software monitoring apps, et cetera, should I use? So I made a list of all the ones that I recommend myself. And I went to each of them and I said, listen, here's what I'm doing. And I explained my business to them, and it was a natural fit, right? So now I'm in a relationship. I'm in a relationship. It's like a Facebook thing. I'm in a relationship with one particular company, and I endorse them, right? So now, of course, that's an affiliate. They don't pay me. It's an affiliate type thing, but they liked what I was doing, and they knew that the people I was talking to, that was always the question. So now whenever I do any of my parenting workshops, or even if I get the question, that's the company that I recommend. So, just know who, and take your time to research them, send them an email. Or, I prefer email. I'm not a big phone person. So send them an email and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. Here's why I think it would be beneficial for us to work together. If you're interested, can we, have a phone call, a video conference, et cetera. And, I don't know, it's going to be probably a 50-50 hit. It depends. And I don't take it personally, because of the fact a lot of times these are smaller shops that run, very, very tight staffing. But anytime also like when I've done my buyer's guides, top 10, top things to buy teenagers for Christmas, right? So the Christmas buying guides, I've had great success with it, because I'm really not charging them. And a lot of times, there's going back to the whole paying thing. So if the way I always looked at it is, if this is a product that I would use or I would spend my money on, I don't always say no if you come at me with no money. So it doesn't, let me back off a little bit on that don't do it thing. You can always try, but understand that, probably the majority of them are going to say no. But there are those out there like myself, like if you came to me and say, hey, we've got this great product, and if it's something that I would have spent my money on anyhow, most likely I would agree to do it. Now, am I going to put as much work into it as I did if I'm getting $1,000 cash? Probably not. But I'm like, okay, I will do this for you in exchange for the product. And based on the value of the product and the value of my time, this is what I'm willing to do.
Okay.
It's negotiation. We all do it.
Okay. That makes sense. So I just have a technical question, I guess. And I don't know if it's technical or not. But when you were looking, and this is just, I'm thinking ahead, like, okay, what if I were to use it? when you were looking for that partnership with those companies, with the software companies, did you send out 10 all at once and hoped one of them would come back? Or would you do one a day and wait to get a response and then go to the next one? What if all 5 of them or 10 of them say yes? I'm just thinking that would be a luxury problem. But
yeah, and it's a valid question. So yeah, I mean, you kind of do drip it out a little bit just in case that does happen. And like, we'll go back to the software, the monitoring software.
Yeah.
The way I would typically do it was to say, I'd like to learn more about your product. Like basically, let's do a demo. Let me see what all it's about, and for the possibility and consider a partnership.
Okay.
And that's how I found Bark. And because I did go through and screen several of them, because it's my reputation. I'm not going to recommend something, especially that important to parents, unless I would use it myself. And most of the others I would too, but I was looking for the one that did the most and was most effective.
That makes sense. Awesome. Those were some, so is there anything else but approaching companies to partner with? Anything else you wanted to touch on, or?
Not really. We might circle back to it if we don't cover some other pointers in another area.
Okay. All right. So the next question is, how do you support the influencers you work with? So you are, again, the business owner, the social media manager, you have a campaign, you had a budget, you find the people, you're getting them ready, you set expectations, you set a deadline, you got all of it, the emails are gone, and you're waiting for content to come back, and you're excited. How do you support your influencers, and whether that it's 3 of them or 30 of them? How do you do it?
Yeah, one of the things that I find brands drop the ball the most on is once the campaign is in process, right?
Once it's started.
And by this, I mean, I can't tell you how many, and I'm talking major brands that I've worked with, that you're putting out content and they're doing nothing with it. They are not retweeting it. They are not sharing it. They are not putting it on. So I'm like, I just sit there and I shake my head and I'm like, you've spent a lot of money. And again, I mean, these are national and international brands, and you don't even use the content. It blows my mind.
So that's probably the disconnect between the person who's doing the campaign and their social media marketing team. There's no communication. That has to be it, right?
Absolutely. And we as social media experts, we know how hard it is to continue to come up with good, fresh, new content. And you have just paid a ton of money to get user-generated content, the most valuable of them all, and you do nothing with it.
That's unbelievable.
It is insane. And I see
that happens to you all the time, because I had a recent experience where, and I just couldn't believe that happened. I had an experience with a online company. I ordered 2 custom silk screen shirts for when my daughter and I were running a marathon together. And I wanted to have a special shirt that both of us wore that on the back said "Mother Daughter Run Together." And I ordered them, and they ordered me. They printed mine on a men's shirt. So I get them, and mine is like 5 sizes too big. It looked ridiculous. So I immediately pick up the phone. I call them. They say, we'll fix it. They send me brand new shirts. It was like a $85 order. They send me 2 brand new shirts. They fixed it. They made sure. That was the sales team online. I then say to them, I'm going to send you pictures once the marathon is done. I'm going to write up this story. I'm going to give it to you because I think that you've done a wonderful job of customer service. Like, I was blown away.
Right.
So I do the marathon. I take pictures. I make sure my front and the back of my shirt is in there. I tag them. Don't hear anything. I go to Facebook Messenger. I give them the pictures and the story. They've never run it on social media. I'm like, seriously, that's like the best stuff that you can have. A person, and a real person endorse user-generated content and hand it to you that could really, so that's what happens with influencer marketing all the time.
Yep.
So that's the biggest, don't do that. Don't hire people and pay a bunch of money and then not go find what they're doing. So then the next question of that is, if they're not retweeting, if they're not doing that, are they even following up and figuring out if you've done what you said?
Nope. Not usually.
Oh,
Not usually.
so
What they'll typically do is at the end of the campaign, they'll ask you for all the links to the things that you did to prove that you did. And so you just go, if you were listening,
or monitoring,
you might have seen it. So, and again, that puts me in a unique position when I am brought in to run these things, because I'm not going to do that. Those are, I'm absolutely going to be using that content. Is some of it repetitive? Absolutely, because you've just asked X amount of people to basically do the same thing, but they each have their own voice and they each have their own angle for it. Like the one that I did last year for one of our clients, we had 5 that did like a really big ask. There were like 3 different sections. It was a really big, a medium, and a small. And so, but the ones that did the really big ask, it included a video. So guess what? Each one of those videos were very, very different and evergreen. So they can continue to use those videos. So it's just, it really just boggles my mind when and let me rephrase that. It actually blows my mind when I do work with a company that actually does do what they should do.
Okay. So the biggest lesson.
I was going to say, it's you as a social media manager, you've got a great opportunity if you want to get into this to truly stand out and make a difference.
Right. That's what I was going to say. So if you're sitting here listening to this and you're listening to Kristen Doe, because who's been in this industry and influencer marketing for a long time, the biggest thing that's missing are people who are doing a follow-up, who are actually working with these influencers and then taking what these influencers give them and bringing it back to the brand and showing all the goodies and using it to elevate that brand.
Yep.
So that's what needs to be done. And that's how you can differentiate yourself, your brand, your client, with these influencers and actually have these campaigns work. And, you can probably measure ROI on those pretty quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's a great piece of information that you just gave us. That, and again, like you said, it's mind blowing that is what happens. And I don't have a whole lot of experience with that, but I do know I can tell you I'm a brand ambassador for a couple of different places, and I have one that I haven't checked in for over a year, and I'm still a brand ambassador, and they haven't checked and they haven't cared, and it's kind of like that where I feel almost like guilty, like to still have that name, and I haven't done anything because they haven't followed up, and so that's their job to come to me and say, look, if you don't do it, we're going to be done, and let's stop this relationship. So that was, I did not know that was going to come out of that. That's awesome. So let's look at what a successful social media campaign looks like. What does it look like? What are some of the elements? What do you call a success?
So it's like anything that any of us do with social media, right? It, at the end of the day, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So it is, if you go into it, everybody wants sales. Okay, let's just get that off the table. That's what everybody wants because that's what pays the bills. However, if you're a new company or it's a new product, what you need almost more than sales is exposure and branding. And that right there, so you want to be checking the impressions, and this is where you've got to come up with the custom hashtag so that you can track it. And that's always, when you lay out, once a blogger has agreed to, or an influencer has agreed to it, you have to be very, very detailed as to what you expect and basically the rules of the road, because you are still in charge of this, right? Yeah. And it's your job, it's your baby to make sure that it goes off. And don't kid yourself. It's like I said earlier, it is a lot of hard work. It is, you can keep your 40 hours a week extremely full, right? Just on this campaign. So don't do it in a time when you're already busy with other stuff. But like your number of impressions, it's the same thing that with anything. Where were the impressions on the Facebook page, right? How many times were things retweeted or shared or liked? So it's, a lot of those are still the same check marks, if you will. But did it create a buzz?
Okay.
And again, you have to remember, the lower your budget is, the lower the exposure is going to be. So you just have to keep realistic expectations. If you think that you have a new widget or a new service and no one's ever heard of it, but you're going to go and dump all this money into it, yeah, it's going to, that first round or that first year or that first time you do it, most likely it's just getting people to know the name, right? And then they'll start seeing it more frequently, etc. So with something like that too, like one of the ones I did last year, I stretched it out over 3 months, I think, because it was a very limited buying season for it. It was a seasonal product, and they had just gone to market. So did they get a ton of sales? No. But they got a ton of exposure. And I guarantee you that this year, they're going to have a lot more sales based on it from last year, because everybody was so excited about it. But it was probably just too late for the person, since it was a seasonal item.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question for that you just mentioned. Are there certain seasons that influencers would be busier than others? How far in advance, and follow-up question with that is, how far in advance do you plan it? How long does it take to plan a campaign? How long do you usually run a campaign? Do you have some insights on that?
Absolutely. So really intense influencers and bloggers who make a decent living out of this, they're just like us. They have their editorial calendar nailed down. Now they do, if it's something really spectacular or really profitable, they'll make it happen. However, if you've got, you plan it like you do any other kind of launch. You need to give plenty of time. That particular thing, as I was mentioning, as a seasonal thing, we could only start it because it was a Christmas item, right? And so we could only start it so, in a certain amount of time. It would have been a waste of money to do it in June, right? Who's thinking about Christmas in June? No one. No one. Now, we were talking about it, but as far as doing that big push, it didn't start until early November.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
And again, it depends what it is. Like if I were to be doing a Christmas gift guide for my site, I would have already started approaching these companies. If not right now, then probably a couple of months ago, because they are in their minds, they're at that point where they're planning for Christmas. That's their big time of the year, right? So you just got to kind of look at what you're doing. If it's sunscreen, right? When do you think you're going to be doing it? It's going to be like probably right before spring break. So March, right?
Right.
You're not going to do sunscreen in September. I mean, granted, everybody wears it still.
Right.
One of the hot months. As far as how long should it go, you don't want them to last too long. Especially if there's a giveaway. So a lot of times, let's say it's a product. So you'll go to the blogger and you'll say, okay, we're going to pay $150. We're going to give you the product and give you one to give away to your readers, right? The attention span is very limited. So you don't want to, I would say 2 weeks max.
Okay.
I think that's pushing it. I would really look at a week. And another effective way is, like, let's say you're working with 30 bloggers or 30 influencers, is you want to spread it out. So you don't want, unless it is like, we need 100 million thousand eyeballs on this product on this one day. You want to just kind of spread it out a little bit.
Okay. Do you ever repeat campaigns from year to year? Have you ever done that where you did, like you said, that Christmas campaign that you did last year and it was more for awareness? This year, it's Christmas season again. Will you use some of the same people? Will you use the same concept? Will you just push it harder, get more people? Can you reuse a campaign, I guess, is what I'm asking?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Especially because you've defined your buyer. So like for that particular one, obviously it was moms, largely moms, and whether they had little kids, because it was kind of cute, kind of cutesy. So the little kids got a buy-in on it, but also, so once you've defined, it's like your buyer's journey and your buyer's persona. So once you figure that out, yeah, why not? I mean, you're going to change it up a little bit, but where it's going to get tricky is if it's the exact same product.
Okay. Excellent.
So, for instance, and the other thing I was going to say too is, as far as time, I'll get a great example. I was an ambassador with Netflix for 6 years, I think. Yeah. And this year, and it was great. I mean, it was a great campaign. It was a great run for them. And this past year, we found out that they were getting rid of at least the US of what we call the stream team. And it stinks because come next March, I'm going to have to finally pay for Netflix for probably the first time in 7 years.
It's not that expensive.
I know, but still, when you haven't paid for 7 years.
Yeah.
But they never said why, but I have a pretty good feeling that the reason why is, I noticed, especially in the last year, I would get free memberships to give away. I had a hard time giving them away because in the US, at least, who do you know that doesn't have Netflix? And
saturated market.
Yeah. So
right.
I think they're going to keep it. But they're going to do it like internationally. So they'll probably do the same thing, but like it'll be Stream Team in Spain, et cetera, where they're trying to boost those international numbers.
That's a great example. That's awesome. Yeah. And you've been flown out to California, right? I mean, you're part of the Stream Team. That's pretty cool. You had a example of a one sheet that I wanted to see if we can pull that up for those of you interested. It's something. Does every influencer or somebody who wants to work with influencers, you have to have a one sheet?
No, but it makes your life easier because a lot of this research goes on with that before you even contact the bloggers or the influencers. So if you are looking for something specific, and it's a benefit to influencers to have one, whether you post it publicly like a lot of people do is up to you, but I don't see any reason why not to. I mean, they're just
okay. So if you create one, you can put it as a PDF on your website, and it can be searchable, or you can embed it in your website and people can look at it. Okay, awesome. I would love to see what it looks like and have you kind of point out a couple of things on there.
All right, let me see if I can get this to work. Can you see it?
There you go. Yeah,
okay.
We can see it.
Yeah, so This is my friend Tiffany, and she is Tiffany. She's a lifestyle blogger, and she's specific. She does a lot of YouTube, right? So this is what hers looks like. And if you'll notice, and of course the numbers are going to change. So if I were to reach out to her, I would have a good idea, general ballpark of what her numbers are, what she does, who is she, what does she do? And then, she puts her page views on there. So see, not a ton of page views, right? Mm-hmm. But she's got really strong numbers other places, right? 1,700 for a influencer YouTube is nothing to sneeze at. It is nothing to sneeze at. She gives her demographics. She gives who some of the other brands that she's worked with. And if I were to look at that, and here's the other big thing. I cannot tell you as someone who runs influencer campaigns, how many blogs and sites that I go to, and I have no idea how to get in touch with them.
Oh.
None. And you want to know how long I'll take researching it?
2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Not even.
Yeah.
I'll click, and then I'm out. So on that piece of it, please make sure that you
now, and to me, what stands out almost more than the top half of the one sheet where it says all the numbers, the bottom, the previous brand partnerships, to me are a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
That to me is huge proof. So I think that's something to consider, that once you have worked with some of these partners, that, to put that on there is neat.
So now Amy is a wildly successful blogger and influencer. I mean, some of the stuff she does is crazy. I'm like, and I love, but she's a DIYer. She's a shabby chic. We go through but let's see, and look, she breaks hers down. She's got but see, she's got a big page view, right? A lot of page views there. And that might be all we're going to be seeing right now. But she's got I was literally getting ready to point at my screen so y'all could see that. Yeah,
page views. She has over 75,000 page views a month.
Yep. So she's got
lots of Pinterest followers, Facebook followers. Instagram is not as big, but Google Plus followers, Twitter, email subscribers. Now that's an interesting one too. Yep. And then she has, instead of the logos on there, she's chosen to put pictures and really brand her one sheet and just have the past brand collaborators on there by name instead of, and I like the visual of immediately seeing, she's worked with Dollar Tree or World Market or Walmart, where she's chosen to highlight different things. So part of that goes with your personality and
Yep.
where you've had success, but those are two completely different one sheets. But
Yep.
I think those are really good examples for people to look at. And then if you are the influencer working, those are some of the things that you need to look at. This person, this one, Amy, is a very visual person. You can see just by the way her layout is.
And I was gonna point that out. The one thing that's different between her and Tiff is that she's showing actual work.
Yes.
You know, this is, I mean, and she does high quality stuff, and she makes great money.
Yeah.
So she does high quality stuff, and she's going to show it off.
Yeah.
So they are two very different type of influencers, but at the same time, and they're two very different one sheets. But I would be able to get a lot of information as a campaign manager of what I want out of that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing those.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you think that somebody, especially if they're new to social media management or new to even influencer marketing, some wise words before we part that you think would be good for people to know before they jump in? Anything you can think of?
No matter how detailed you are, you're gonna mess up.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's just so many details. So the first time you do one, it will absolutely blow your mind. It will clean your clock. I'm just telling you right now, unless you're that person who is, so because not only are you dealing with multiple people, but you're dealing with multiple aspects that each of those people are doing. And it's just, you have a calendar. You just need to have a checklist. Like when I'm doing a big one, my entire whiteboard is just all sectioned off, and you need to have deadlines for these people, and you need to be checking that they're hitting these deadlines. There's so many moving parts to doing this. It can be quite overwhelming. So the more organized you are, the better it's going to be. And you need to also begin, like a lot of things, begin with the end in mind. So you don't want to be left scrambling on, when you're going back with your executive summary and pulling these numbers together. You don't, save yourself the heartache and just keep track with it as meticulously as you can the entire time.
All right. So if you're going to give an analytics of what the role of the influence marketing campaign manager would be, are you like a farmer herding sheep? Are you like a college professor giving out an assignment? Are you a high school teacher who is encouraging? Like, what can we expect? Because I think it sounds like a fun thing to do, but it sounds like,
excuse me.
Said, it's a lot of work. You're working with a lot of people, a lot of moving parts. Are we expecting?
It is like being a parent and trying to herd kittens. There's no sheep. It's herding kittens. It's like nailing Jello to the wall. I mean, it is just, you really have to be really, really good at multitasking. And because you've got to follow up. You're always going to have the bloggers or the influencers that don't do what they say, and you do not pay until they.
That question just popped in my head when you said that. You don't pay until the campaign is done.
You do not pay until the campaign is done. Now you give the product if product is part of the ask, right? They can't do it without it. However, if you're paying them cash, it does not happen until after they have turned in their links, turned in their numbers, etc.
All right. Excellent. Well, I so appreciate you being with us. This was super information and super fun to learn more about it. Good. And it was more in depth than what we've had before, and it's very practical.
Well, thanks for watching this session of the Social Media Day Summit. If you enjoyed this content and you want to see more like it, we invite you to check us out at Social Media Pro. Over the last 9 years, we've trained thousands of social media managers on everything from getting their very first client all the way through scaling their business beyond just being a social media manager. And in our community, Social Media Pro Connect, we host live weekly trainings with our faculty and other special guest experts, just like the one you just watched. So to learn more and to get a special discount as a member of the Social Media Day Summit, just visit the link that you see here on the screen, and I look forward to seeing you there.